And I think Citizens United in some ways ties into the voter ID question. And I'm going to talk about that just for a little while. Here again, that was framed as either or, talk a little bit about whatever you want to. I think voter ID is very problematic, okay? How many people in here have driver's licenses? Okay, I think every single person in here has a driver's license. You wouldn't have any problem going to vote. Now, put yourself in the position of someone without a driver's license. Oh, we've got one up here without a driver's license. Okay. Okay. Do you have a passport, other government-issued identification?
Passport just got stolen.
Okay. Okay, well, that wouldn't count under the voter ID law. Not good enough. It's not government-issued. Okay? But put yourself in a position not of the privileged people that you are in our society, but people that, how many of y'all have your birth certificate? Okay, a lot of you have your birth certificate. What if you had had to move 10 times because you couldn't pay the rent over the last 10 years and had to keep track of your papers and didn't because they got lost in process? How many of y'all in here know where you go to get a birth certificate, which is a fundamental requirement in order to get a government-issued ID, right? We've got 4. Does it cost money to do it?
Yes.
Yes, costs $10, $15. Is it hard in Texas? No, it's not hard. You go down to the county, you get a birth, you go in through the line, you pay them your money, they run it for you right there because there's a consolidated registry. What, on the other hand, is the situation if you were born outside of the state of Texas? Only a few jurisdictions. Many jurisdictions require proof of birth, and particularly...
Well, minimum 30 business days for the state of Pennsylvania.
Okay.
I just went through it.
Right, okay. There's one type of requirement. I had another person, because they had been married and they had changed their name when they got divorced, that was required to provide supplemental information as well as paying well over $200 in that jurisdiction to get a birth certificate. Now, put yourself in the position of a person making minimum wage. That's $7 and what, 35 cents, 65 cents? A little bit over $7 an hour. Okay, if you don't go to work, you don't eat. You don't have a place to live. Can you afford to take the time to go down to the courthouse to get your birth certificate, which you then have to take to the DPS to get your ID card? And I'm just throwing these out there for you to think about, okay? Because I think it ties into a fundamental question having to do with voting rights and how we as a society approach the whole question of voting rights. And, you know, I mean, in the beginning, who could vote? White landowners. That's right. Okay, we started out with white landowners. Now, is there anybody in here, I bet you there is, okay, who could vote under that standard? No, you're not a male. You can't vote. No, it's white male landowners. Okay, women couldn't vote. No, no. Okay, so is there anybody in here, male, that is a landowner? No, all you had to do was own some. There were in some jurisdictions there were tract size limitations too, but in most jurisdictions you simply had to own property. Now, that was both stake in society and it was identification, wasn't it? Because you couldn't own if you owned land, people could tell where you were. Okay? But you had a stake. Now, since then, right, we've gone through repeated waves of saying, we're not just going to let white male landowners vote. Right? We've had constitutional amendments that put in place a system of universal suffrage. Now, is universal suffrage a good idea? I don't know the answer to that question. I tend to think most of the time, right? Can one make an argument that it's not the best system? Certainly you can. Robert Heinlein, the science fiction author, postulated a system in which only people that were veterans could vote because they had demonstrated the selflessness necessary to work for society rather than just for themselves. So, given though, our societal decision to have universal suffrage, let you vote even though you are female and don't own property. Okay? Do we want to put in place impediments to allowing people to vote that solve a problem that doesn't exist or that has much narrower solutions? How do they solve the problem of voter ID in third world countries? They don't have even voter registration process. That's right. You stick your finger in an indelible ink that's going to last for the day that you can't watch off. Now that's a really simple, foolproof system that solves the problem of multiple votes by a natural person, isn't it? Okay? What's wrong with that one? I don't see a real problem with that. I'd be willing to put my finger on a thing of ink, right? It's a nice, narrowly crafted solution to meet the real problem. Voter ID is intended to make it hard for some people in our society, not the folks sitting in this room, to be able to cast their vote. And I don't know which way that pushes, okay? Just as Brad said about Citizens United and the super PACs, it can push different ways at different times. But if we adopt the view that we're going to have universal suffrage, then we should make it as easy to vote as possible while precluding the kind of corruption and the kind of voting fraud that none of us want to have. We want to let everybody have one vote and no more, except if you're in South Texas and you're working for LBJ, right? So those are my comments about those two things, and I hope I've thrown out a little bit for food for thought more than answers, because I certainly don't profess to know everything, but I do reflect about these things some over time, and would hope that you would do so as well in a useful, reflective way rather than a positional way. So.